So a lot of my stuff, I kind of specialize in post-apocalyptic, like war and grunge, weathering, a lot of that kind of stuff. But that's not to say that's the only thing that I've kind of picked up. Because a lot of the times, like when you're looking for one type of technique to do one thing, you end up finding a technique that does the opposite at the same time. So there's a lot of stuff that kind of goes hand in hand a lot of the time. But since we have so many people, I'm going to try, normally how I run these is I'll do a little bit of talking about what I've done over the years and the kind of materials I do. And then I open it up and just by show of hands, like I'll just kind of go from the front of the room to the back or from the back of the room to the front. It kind of just depends on what strikes me at the moment. But just going through ideas that you want to do as a cosplay. So like you have a character or an armor build or a prop or something that you're not quite sure how to start. And I'll take a look at it and I'll try and figure out if I can give you a starting point for that. And kind of where I'm coming in saying that, what I do professionally is working for film and TV, doing special effects and props and a lot of that stuff now. So that's actually kind of a recent jump. I just started doing that professionally this last winter. So that's pretty cool. I also realized I kind of screwed up. I did forget to bring something with me. It's actually a prop from Aliens that my boss let me bring with me, one of the original pulse rifles. But my hands were a little full, so I forgot to bring that, so sorry. Let's see, we still got some people filing in, so I'll just kind of keep setting up some stuff for right now. And you'll get a little like Mr. Agitator style strip show here because weather is hot. Don't roast me. You know the same proportions as Nick.
Don't be a hater.
I didn't even know that.
Always a hater. You already know.
You're right, I do. That doesn't mean I need to.
Okay, so I think we're already at start time. Is it 3:30?
3:31.
Oh, okay, cool. All right, let's get this show going. I have a hard time remembering this isn't an 18+ event. Sorry. So I'm Ranger Loki, as it's titled in the book. Like I said, I've been starting to get into props and stuff for film and TV professionally for a little while. I've been doing cosplay for about 4 or 5 years. And I've kind of tinkered around with a lot of different like material science and stuff like that for a lot longer, just because I've always thought it was kind of interesting. For a while when I started doing my cosplay builds and stuff, I'd go and look at a lot of forums, a lot of YouTube kind of things, kind of the same that pretty much everybody in this room has probably done. Or not you, especially.
I don't have any interviews.
Oh, okay. Well, you can talk to me actually. But from there, I was kind of noticing there was a lot of repetition of the same kind of techniques. When I first started looking into things, doing fiberglass on peppercorn, which how many people here, show of hands, are familiar with what peppercorn is? Okay. So peppercorn, wow, that has really gone down in popularity in the last like 5 years. Peppercorn is a program basically for your computer. You can download a file and you download the software, you download a file of what you want to make. So typically it's most often used for power armor. So like for Halo Spartan armor or Fallout armor, Fallout masks. Like this was originally a digital paper file. But it's, you load the object and it'll give you a bunch of basically images that you print out on a printer. And it'll have marked lines to cut and lines to fold in and lines to fold out. So you can kind of use that as a shortcut to fold paper and glue it all together on tabs to form a 3D object off of your home printer. What's that? It does not make the pattern for you. You have to find the pattern. So that's kind of the trick with that software. Oh yes, yeah. If somebody's already made the pattern for what you want, you can just print out what it is. So like the whole face of this mask started off as just cardstock paper. And then from there, that's where I started running into like peppercorn. You print out the stuff on paper, you fold it and glue it and tab it and all that stuff. But then you would use fiberglassing. So using resin and patches of like glass threads and slathering that all on there. The only problem with fiberglass is it's very, very, very itchy if you do it wrong, because the glass gets into your skin and it has like reverse barbs, so it'll start digging in. So fiberglass is one of those things that a lot of the people who used to do like the really hardcore armor and the hardcore props, they actually came out of doing auto body technician work. So they're using materials that they're used to. So dunno, fiberglass. Pepakura was just something they kind of found to help bootstrap themselves up to be able to have a template to work with. And it is funny, like in the last year or so, the amount of people who have even heard of Pepakura keeps going down because so many more people start working just freeform with like closed-cell foam, like EVA foam. So a lot of people currently make their stuff out. So a quick show of hands, who's familiar with like EVA foam or craft foam? Yeah, a lot more people than Pepakura. The foam stuff.
Mind if you guys don't
really
stand here?
taken
I've
over,
got a camera going.
just because you don't have to have
There's,
that base
some chairs over there.
template. You don't have to print out a bunch of paper and do a lot of tedious work. You can kind of just work with the foam, and usually you can get it so cheap from Harbor Freight, you don't care if you screw up. You just throw it away and grab another sheet, or you cut it up into smaller pieces and redo it. Or with EVA foam, one of the big things with that for the people who aren't aware of what it is it's kind of a thick sheet of just floor mat. They usually call it anti-fatigue mat. Like they're like airline tiles that you usually see in like machine shops or like kind of nice home garage and stuff like that. But it's heat sensitive, so you can take basically an overpowered gun or a heat gun and heat that up, bend it into a shape, kind of form it into that shape, and it'll keep that shape after it cools. So that's kind of a little bit easier than messing around with printing off a bunch of pages of paper, cutting them, gluing them, tabbing them all together, and then messing around with fiberglass to do that. So obviously a lot of people are switching over to that method. It's also like a quarter of the cost of fiberglass. Let's see, so I lost my tangent. Pepakura was originally a lot of what you would see with the fiberglassing stuff when I started getting into this. And I kind of looked at that and I'm like, there's got to be an easier way to do this. Like, I'm not an experienced auto body tech. That's the threat. There's a lot of auto body techs where the people getting into prop making. So like Vulpin, that's probably one of those popular ones. How many people know Vulpin and like does Dragon Con stuff? One? Holy crap on it, I guess. I don't know. That is bizarre. Vulpin was the first guy to make Daft Punk helmets for conventions. Has anybody seen Dragon Con when they used to have that old funky carpet? And somebody made like camouflage suits to blend into the carpet at Dragon Con? That was Vulpin. Vulpin also makes a lot of props now for video game companies. He made a lot of the original molds for stuff like the Kale Hammer from Bastion. He made a bunch of the guns for Mass Effect for BioWare. When they said, hey, here's the digital file and we want this stuff, he's made a bunch of stuff for Ubisoft, for Halo. So this is what he does for a living now, and he started out doing auto body tech. So that's where he came in with fiberglass and Bondo and stuff like that, doing mold making, doing negative molds and positive molds, and turning that into props. So a lot of people like Vulpin, I always forget, there's a bunch of other really popular prop makers, and that's what they did for a day business, was auto body technicians. So no wonder that's where a lot of that stuff came from. Now, Warbler and EVA foam are probably the two newer things that kind of broke out of that. Warbler, how many people know Warbler? Okay, yeah, that's about average. So Warbler is what's called a thermoplastic. It comes as a sheet of plastic and it reacts to heat, kind of like how EVA foam that I was describing. It's got a little bit lower temperature. It starts bending at about 85 degrees Fahrenheit. And I think it's like fully workable around 100 or so. But a lot of people have used that to make a lot of armor from, like, if you go on, look on like different cosplay pages that share photos. A lot of people who do bigger armor, it's either Warbler or EVA foam or some kind of mix of the two of them. So to get back to the original topic, when I first started getting into this and I started looking to build this helmet, this is actually the first thing I ever built. Was this little face mask, and this is just a Polish steel pot helmet that I put it into. But this was all originally paper. Now it's kind of hard as a rock. I've dropped this thing a bunch of times. But it's not fiberglass, because I started looking around and I'm like, well, there's a lot of cool stuff out there, like polymerizing plastics. It's 2 bottles of liquid until you mix them together, and in about 15 minutes they dry into a hard plastic. So that's all I did was just on the inside, is I poured the liquid polymer and it hardened into a hard plastic. There's been a couple other little things that I'll mention that I've kind of added on to there over the years. But this thing is regular EVA floor mat that's usually really soft and bendy. So if you're seeing a lot of people, like usually Mass Effect cosplayers will definitely use EVA, and it's still kind of squishy and spongy. Not this stuff. This has what's called shell shock on top of it. It's another polymerizing plastic that you mix two pieces together. Like, no, you were the one who actually hit me with a baseball bat when I was wearing this, and I was like, that's it? I accidentally made real armor when I made this thing. I've got some cross sections of the stuff. I'm going to go ahead and pass that around because it's kind of neat, so you can kind of see both parts of what I'm talking about. There's one, there's the other. There we go. So on the back, the dark gray part is the EVA foam, and then the top white part is that shell shock plastic. It pours basically like pancake batter. So it's a liquid when it goes on, and it just kind of sloughs over. So it's self-leveling, so you end up with a pretty smooth surface on top. So that was kind of the stuff I started doing, and I started kind of looking around, and I'm like, I don't see other people doing these kinds of things, and I'm like, well, maybe I should tell them about it. Let's see, from there, I do a lot of stuff with like different thermoplastics. I play around a little bit with like just weird little electronic things. So this was a mask that I started making for a friend of mine. They ended up not wanting it. So this is Kydex. This is a different thermoplastic. Kydex in its base form just looks like a regular little sheet of plastic. It's like Warbler, but industrial strength. Warbler, like I said, it starts working and bending at around 80 degrees, and it becomes fully malleable around 100, 110 degrees. Guess what else is in those temperature ranges? Your car when it's off, or if you don't have air conditioning. So it can start melting and deforming and stuff like that, even when you have it on. Like if you're doing like today, like if you end up getting in like a really tight area for a while or standing in the skyway, your stuff could start deforming or if someone bumps into it. Now there's pros and cons to each of these materials. Warbler is definitely easier to work because you can pretty much just use a hair dryer to melt that stuff. Kydex is a little different. Like I said, it's kind of an industrial kind of Warbler. This stuff starts working at around 110, 120. And it's not fully malleable until it's about 150 degrees, so you definitely need a full-on heat gun to work on this. Good news, heat guns are $10 at Harbor Freight. Harbor Freight, if you really start getting into like bigger cosplay stuff, will become your best friend because you can get cheap tools, and who cares if they break? You get rid of them and buy another one for $10. Kydex itself, you're going to start here. There's a couple of names you're going to hear me say a lot, and I swear to God they are not paying me to say their names. Amazon, Smooth On, and Harbor Freight. Those are probably the three main companies I go to. This stuff, a sheet of like 2 foot by 2 foot Kydex, this gray stuff was around $12. If you look at the square inch of Kydex versus Warbler, it's about 2/3 the cost of Warbler. It's cheaper. Like I said, it's a lot higher temperature. Like a lot of the like little cuts and stuff on here are from Dremel rotary tools. If you tried to do that with Warbler, I'm pretty sure it would just kind of fall apart.
How do you spell Kydex?
What's that?
How do you spell Kydex?
Kydex.
Okay, cool.
Now, the one thing with Kydex, there's actually a bunch of different kinds of Kydex. The stuff that I usually recommend is called Kydex 4, so Kydex IV. Kydex is actually used in a lot of military applications to make gun holsters. You use that with vacuum forming, and like all those plastic holsters that you see a lot of cops or a lot of military personnel using, that's Kydex. They just form that around their personal gun. So you can have a customized pistol and a customized holster, and you can do it in your garage. It's a different grade of Kydex that uses a higher heat. But this stuff works just as well. This is actually a sword sheath. I made this out of Kydex in about 15 minutes or so before an event. Because I was like, man, I want to take my sword. I need a sheath. So I just grabbed a sheet of Kydex and the heat gun and just folded it around the sword and cut it out to the shapes I wanted, and then pop riveted some stuff in there. This was also originally Kydex. That was that same material. And then I used what's called Plastidip. Plastidip I know is getting a little more common. It's basically like spray paint, but it sprays kind of a rubberized coating on there. A lot of people sometimes are more familiar with it being called tool dip. That's where it originally was used, was to dip like the handles of pliers and stuff like that in there so you can have a better grip. I'll pass this around too, just be a little careful. It's got a bunch of wires so you can feel what Plastidip's like on there. But the stuff that's kind of running through here, this is called EL wire, electroluminescent. And it's kind of neat stuff. So you can just run it through kind of like thread, and you can get it in a bunch of different colors, and it just has a little like AAA battery box that powers it. So I've only got the one of these that's finished in the Plastidip. I just wanted to mostly pass it around so you can see what the Plastidip feels like. Plastidip, most commonly, you'll see it used as finishing for EVA armor, and I do use that like for priming the EVA before I'll put other stuff on because it'll seal in any little gaps and stuff like that. Let's see, I think that's most of what I wanted to go over of kind of like different primer stuff. I'll continually keep thinking of things because as always, I never make notes for things. Yes? Plastidip?
P-L-A-S-T-I.
Yeah, like it's just plasta, like plastic, just drop the C and D.
You can find it at Walmart, and
Yeah,
Yards, and Home Depot.
Rust-Oleum makes some, I forget what they call it, but it's the generic name is just like rubberized spray or something like that. Yes? So I actually, both of those, each of those has a different thing. The yellow one has, what is it? It's MOMO, like MOMO 300. Is a chemical from shell shock. It pours a lot more viscous, so it's closer to water than like Jello. So it was a little harder to work with, but it ends up being about the same type of plastic as shell shock.
Yeah, but don't
What's
stand
best
up.
for stuff like this. Shell shock goes on a little bit thicker. So whenever you have curved surfaces and you're pouring anything liquid on there, if it's curved, it's going to end up thicker at the bottom than it is on the top. So you want a thicker liquid that you're pouring on there so it'll kind of stick together. So that's definitely like for any kind of curved panel. The plastic stuff I used, I really wasn't using it the way it was supposed to be used. It was supposed to be used more for making molds. So like you use a silicone rubber to make a copy of something, and then you pour in that plastic just into a standard cavity and just fill it. Okay, so from there I'm going to just kind of go into, like I said, there's so many people here, we only got about an hour and a half or so. So does anybody have any kind of cosplay design or anything that they are wanting to do themselves? Colonel Sanders.
So, right about,
Yes.
so Edward always have the
Arm?
so I'm kind of curious how we go about setting it up. I thought like was it the IV,
The Kydex stuff?
Kydex IV would be a cool
That's
way.
usually what I recommend. I've had a lot of people ask me about that. I've seen one really ballsy kid, he actually just used sheet steel.
Steel?
Yeah, and he cut his arm up like crazy. Yeah, that was not the best idea. Now, the Kydex stuff, it can have sharp edges, but you can just kind of sand that down with regular sanding paper, or just hit it with a heat gun, and any of the burrs will kind of just deform back up into it, and you just peel them off.
Right, but if I wanted to have it moving on both on my arm, my ligament on my arm, would I have to like cut it down into pieces like?
Yeah, you would want to do, there's a couple different ways to do it. That's not something there's a lot of great references on.
Yeah.
But basically, you're going to want to have plates sliding over each other. The closest thing you're going to want to look at is like medieval plate armor. Yeah, medieval plate armor. So you're going to, typically there'll be a leather piece that kind of goes from here to here, and that's where you get your flexibility from. Now, you're not going to ever get total coverage with anything over that joint unless it's actually made out of that. Now, one of the things you can do is if you have a piece coming here and a piece coming here, you can put a little rivet or a bolt in here, and that'll allow it to swing kind of like a big knee brace kind of thing.
Right.
So that'll at least make it one big piece so that this piece isn't sliding down and this piece isn't sliding down. One of the things when you're talking about something that big too is the whole thing's going to want to slide off of you the whole time. So you're going to want to probably put a strap up here up to like some kind of necklace piece or something that wraps around your chest and comes from under your arm. That way the whole thing just doesn't want to keep walking off of your arm the whole time, because you also don't want to belt it down so tight that you lose circulation.
So would I use something similar for the leg and just keep it tight around my? leg?
I would, like I said, I would recommend if you could do a strap from the top and from the bottom to like some kind of belt that goes around here.
Going for the leg too.
Oh, for the leg,
That's
yeah.
the
So for the leg, you'll want to have like a little ring
Yeah.
and have it come up to your actual belt. So that way it'll keep it held up on your belt. Yeah, like suspenders.
Look at
So,
the regular thigh.
well, like on the back of me, I've got 2 different pairs of suspenders on for this whole rig.
Makes sense.
Yeah, these are called Perry suspenders. They're not like clips or buttons or anything.
Yeah.
They actually hook over your belt. So Mr. Agitator from V is for Villains, he uses the same suspenders as me to keep his pants up. Who all was at the concert last night for V is for Villains? No? Anybody?
Sorry.
Okay, well, he had a funny mishap last night. He wasn't wearing his normal ones. He had little clip suspenders, and the back clip popped off. And he wears these big leather belts usually on his legs. Well, they started pulling his pants down in the middle of the concert. So he had to bail with all these leather, like he had 2 leather leg pouch things, his full belt, and all the suspenders, and he's like taking it off in the middle of singing. Because his pants are about to come off, and he's been told not to do that here again. I think that's happened twice before that he's taken his pants off here.
Oh wow.
So usually he saves that for outside venues. He either rips them or just takes them off because it's hot. Yes. Oh, did I answer everything? Okay, cool. Yes.
What was the website you mentioned before? Because like I always look for EVA foam, but I only find the big mats, and I'm trying occasionally. So
Oh, okay. I mean, usually I just go to Harbor Freight and get it. There's a bunch of Harbor Freights in the area. That's actually one of the products they will not sell online because it's kind of big. So it costs them a lot of shipping. Like, do you live in the area or where are you from?
What area are you talking about?
Oh, I'm talking about the whole Chicago area. But Harbor Freight has stores nationwide.
I live in just up in Greenville.
Yeah, they have Harbor Freights there. Just, yeah, take a look online. Yeah, and they very often end up selling, it's like 12 square feet of EVA foam for like $12. Otherwise, you can get the stuff on Amazon too. Usually, if you have Prime or you know somebody who has Prime, you can get the free shipping.
Is there another website you mentioned?
No, it's like Harbor Freight for physical store. They also have an online store, and then Amazon and Smooth On for the thermoplastic and the polymerizing plastics. Yes. Oh, it's familiar. What's the character name?
Well, I wanted to do the season 2 Black Panther show. No idea.
Okay. What you have there is a good base, like doing a morph suit kind of thing. There's a couple different kind of adhesives you can use. You want it to be flexible. I would guess, I've not done it myself before, IC2000, it's kind of a rubber glue. It comes out as black. I actually have a little bottle too, if you want me to just take a picture of it for reference after the thing. IC2000. It's black rubber glue. It originally started as like tire void filling, but it remains flexible after it dries, like to a certain extent, and it's really adhesive. So I would probably guess for this, so what are you showing me? It's like kind of a spandex bodysuit with like big armor panels that are right on the suit, which can be a little tricky because most adhesives you're going to use are going to screw up how that sits on you. But yeah, I would probably go with EVA foam panels and glue them on because the EVA is going to be nice and light when it's in its regular EVA state. I probably wouldn't put any kind of hardening agent on the EVA because you want them to flex. Let's see, God, you can even go into like carving them up, putting in little LED light panels or just EL wire rope for the little lights on top of the things. A lot of that would just be carving the EVA, which is something I kind of skipped over, but since you brought it up, I'll go back on that. EVA foam is really cool in just using it as just regular sheets. That's most of how I use it. But you can use what's called either a hot knife, which is like an X-Acto knife that you plug into the wall and it heats up. You can make them from scratch, but they're also $10 on Harbor Freight. Or Amazon. It's like, it's one of those things, it's like, yeah, I could spend a couple hours building one. I'll just pay a couple bucks.
On that contract
Yeah.
for again.
Okay, yeah. No, hey, I got a mill and a lathe at home. That's cheating. IC2000. Well, this is the other thing I wanted. I'll dig that out as I'm kind of going over this. Oh, here it is. It's not the cheapest glue in the world. A bottle like this is about 13 bucks. A little bit goes a long way though, at least. Like, God, I think actually half of these panels are stuck onto this with this glue. And they've been on for close to a year at this point. There's another kind of glue that I used for a lot of stuff. It's called sticky ass glue. It's like a third-party Gorilla Glue kind of thing, but I kind of like it better than Gorilla Glue. It's an expanding glue. It takes like 12 hours to set. But once something's glued together, it doesn't come off. I've got an armor panel on the back of one of my big oiled skin dusters, and that panel has not moved in the 5 years since I put it on with that stuff. So as long as you clamp it down to whatever it's going to, it doesn't really go away. But yeah, this stuff, I actually just realized it's got like a stock label that was all over the front of it. But that's what it kind of looks like. Just kind of a clear bottle. No, I was going to say, I'm not letting that out of my sight. That's my last bottle. Also, as far as carving and cutting EVA, there's a company, what is this, called Foamworks? This is actually a little tool so that you can cut 90-degree or 45-degree angles into EVA foam. So it's got this little piece here that I can unscrew. So this is if I want to do a 45-degree angle cut. I just go over like that, and this blade that's right here drops down. So you can get a perfectly beveled edge. So like for the edges of the armor you're talking about, this might be pretty useful. These are like $12, $13, something like that. Yeah, Foamworks.
Yeah, what Foamworks is the name of it?
Is the name of the company. I don't know what to call this. I've heard so many different names for it. I've heard just foam cutter, angled foam cutter. Somebody I knew called it a rabbit. I don't know why. Yeah, it's totally a rabbit. No, but it's kind of a nice little tool for how simple it is. There we go. So like this little plastic piece comes off, and now it's a 90-degree angle cutter. You just run it down, and you can adjust the blade height for how thick you want to cut it. Because one of the things that'll happen when you're working with EVA foam is like maybe you just want to get like what is it? These pieces, like the edges. These ones I actually cut them out into individual pieces. But if I had left this without the hardening agent on there and it was just the raw foam, I could have just cut halfway down and then kind of bent it and it would create what looks like an edge. Then I could have used this to put a bevel on it. One of the other neat things with EVA foam is when you're doing score cuts like that, if you hit it with a heat gun, it'll actually pull apart from each other. So you can actually create little detailed lines like that. There's a couple of really, really good, like in-depth written guides on how to do that kind of stuff with EVA foam. So I tend to just kind of mention them and not go into it because it's like all that information is easily available. But if you just look up how to work with EVA foam, you'll usually find a couple things. I know Vulpin, the guy I mentioned earlier, he put out a whole series of PDF books on working with EVA foam, but they're like $35 for like a set of 3 PDF files. I'm not gonna like deliberately tell people that you can do a thing called downloading them illegally. But there's lots of other, it's like the stuff that he has in those books isn't anything that's not available for free anywhere else. There's a lot of online forums, like the Halo community is one of the biggest and best organized of how to work with EVA foam and Pepakura and fiberglass resining, because there's a lot of people who have been doing a lot of Halo armor for a lot of years, and they like to talk to each other about how to do that. I believe the website name is called like the 405th, but if you just look up like Halo Cosplay Forum, you'll probably find it on a quick Google search.
And also Instructables is your best friend.
Yeah,
they do have some pretty
I've got mixed feelings about Instructables. Some of the stuff they put up there, there's no way to know how well it works. I've run into some things on Instructables that are some of the stupidest ideas I've ever seen. Like mixing bleach and soap. That makes chlorine gas. That'll get you, put your way into the Geneva Convention if you weren't doing it in the US and in a hostile country, but if you do it at home, whatever. Yeah, yeah, that's a whole other ballgame that you can do fun things with. Let's see, I think there were a few other hands. I'm trying to remember who had them up first. You've been super, super attentive, so I'm going to reward you. What's up? You. Yes, you. Looking confused. Oh, you got your hand up for something? Yeah, like an idea for something you want to make? Yeah. Oh, Jesus. I wish that dude was here today. One of my buddies has it. He actually put stilts into it because when he's standing next to me, he's about this tall. When he's in his T60, he's about the same height as me, which is hilarious when we do pictures together. Because I'm in my NCR Ranger stuff. He's in the T60, and I'm like, what, you know? That is definitely like kind of like way up there as far as what you're going to want to do. There's a decent amount of walkthroughs. Now, my buddy Trevor, I know that his armor looks amazing. He's won a couple of competitions for it. He fell off the stage for something walking out the hall. Which kind of brings me to another point. Whenever you're going to do some kind of big armor or big suit, have somebody with you that's going to keep an eye on that person so they don't fall and open doors. Like, even with that helmet, I can't see below here. I'm kind of a tall guy. You might notice an issue if I can't see anything below here. That's a decent amount of people in this room. I'm just like, hey, what's up, bang? So yeah, whenever you're doing anything even bigger than that, that's just a helmet, bro. And this thing blocks me from looking down. That's why I put the cockpit on the side. But yeah, anything big, definitely need a handler there to help you. Otherwise, you will like step on little children like you're I know this is a long way to say I can't tell you how to do this right now because it is a very, very involved and long process. But there's a lot of people who have done it and they've put a lot of information out there. But what I want to get into, the big thing is that my buddy Trevor, he made this, which is one of the best things I've ever seen. It's just EVA foam and pink insulation. He just used pink insulation for his lifters on his boots. The only thing I helped him out with was when he was talking about he used to have T45 on his fiberglass. Because he's an auto body technician. So he's made a bunch of Iron Man suits, he's made RoboCop, this is like his third version of Fallout Power Armor. He's made a lot of cool stuff. But he was always saying, man, my arms, I can't move them because I have this huge thing of like plastic on there. I can't bend them up and I can't like rotate forward. I'm like, have you tried putting a lazy Susan in there? And he's like, what? A lazy Susan, basically there's an inner ring and an outer ring. Usually you'll see them like at Chinese restaurants, it'll be like a tray on the table that you spin around on the ring. That's what I know it is a lazy Susan. Well, you put those around your arm here, put it in the torso, then you attach the outer arm to that, you got an arm you can swing up and down real easy. A buddy of mine actually used that for a spacesuit that he built for a pilot of a TV show, is where I got the idea from. That's also where I found out about shell shock. I would have brought the spacesuit with me, but it's kind of friggin' big and heavy because he gave me the prototype one that weighs about 40 pounds for the torso. Yeah, he said, okay, after that he realized that he could make it with less material, and it was still just as strong. Shell shock is super strong stuff. Let's see, I know there was a couple other names. Yes. Okay. The Eye. What's his name? Just Cyborg? Yeah, so Cyborg from Teen Titans in DC, just in general. And you want the whole half face?
Yeah, exactly like how he has it.
Okay. Yeah, no, I do the same thing, and that's what I'm screwing myself on. Without blinding yourself? You're going to want to start looking at the LED. Red LEDs are the cheapest LEDs on the market. They're the oldest LEDs. And you can get them in a whole bunch of different wavelengths and powers. So you can just use a single coin cell on the temple and just run a couple wires. Now, you're probably going to need to learn how to do soldering for that. Okay, so that's right, you mentioned, yeah. So yeah, just a red LED and some kind of translucent plastic. The lenses for that helmet, they're just really thin plexiglass and red tinting, like for brake lights, when the brake lights, if they get smashed, that's that plastic that goes over that for the red. So that's just scraped down there. I've replaced those. I usually replace those lenses once a year. So I just punch it out and replace them. Because let's do a quick funny story as an interlude. The first version of this helmet, I decided I just want to use red plexiglass for the lenses because they're supposed to be red. The thinnest you can get that is about yay thick. It's about, what, like a 1/16 of an inch or so. That's pretty thick for a piece of plastic. I put the helmet on at home to test it, and I'm like, okay, it's a little bit dark, but I can kind of see where I'm going. I also had like a curtain thing running around behind the helmet to make it look like a full helmet. I get to my hotel room and I put it on, and I was here at the Hyatt. This was about 4 or 5 years ago in Anime Midwest. And a lot of the rooms, if you haven't stayed in them before, you're in the main room, and then there's kind of a hallway that comes forward, and then it turns, and then turns again to go out the door. Well, I put the helmet on, and I'm like, man, this is a little darker than I thought. How do I... right into the wall, with all the lights in the room up. I couldn't see anything unless I was in direct daylight with that. So that's why I went with the like super clear plastic and just putting the brake tinting over it. Because I was like, yeah, okay, that's not gonna work. Did that answer most of what you were asking? Or okay, yeah, because the rest of it I'd say like Kydex, and you can get like clear plexiglass, just get it real thin. Because anything, yeah, for the clear parts, you can tint it with the same kind of thing, do the same thing with LEDs or EL wire. The only thing with, not plexi, what am I thinking of? Lexan. Just get it thin. I got some stuff to do a Morton Joe from Mad Max Fury Road, and I got it at 0.03 inches. Yeah, heat guns don't work on that. Not for the size that I had to try and do this. Like by the time I got from one little piece of the sheet heated up to work, moved to the next, that one cooled off. So you want to go real thin with that stuff, but you can use a heat gun to work that as well. Okay, so how many other people? Let's see. Jesus H. I'm going to just start at the front and try and work my way back and try to remember. So we're going to do you, and then we're going to do you after that, and then we'll keep working from there. I'm going to try and call. Okay. Yes?
Giant clip and advice for making staffs.
Giant clip.
Clip.
Oh, okay.
And
from
advice for
Horizon.
making
Okay, I
staffs.
thought you were calling him giant clip.
No,
That's not giant.
there's a giant clip right
Yes.
there.
Jesus, there's a lot of stuff you can use to do that. You can just use wood.
Yeah. Also, maybe pipe insulators. I was thinking about.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of those things where a lot of the time I just default to say use EVA. Because EVA is cheap, and it'll end up being about yay big by yay big, so you have a lot of scrap material
I
if
thought
you
so,
want.
but this is gonna take a bit.
Yeah, oh no, for the staff then.
Yeah, I said
Yeah,
game for the staff.
and the staff. The staff, yeah, definitely PVC conduit pipe. Maybe scheduled for you. There's different kinds of PVC, and it has different strengths on it, but you can ask the contractor person. Like, don't ask Menards, they don't know anything. Home Depot's all right. Lowe's is all right. But yeah, it's PVC conduit would probably be good. The other thing you can do is just a metal rod. If you just go looking at curtain rods and stuff like that.
It's just
for
there's a
the
lot of
top.
carving on it.
Yeah, and that's where it gets kind of tricky. It's like, what tools and what kind of space do you have available?
We have a full garage with a backyard, a power saw, and
Yeah, so it's like you could take the time. Oh, he does?
yeah.
Oh, that's pretty easy.
And
So,
it's all the cleaners and everything.
yeah, so if you can help you out with your digital styling on it, that's actually easy. Have a link.
He wants one, but
I was going to say, because that's how you do that kind of spiral and cuts on those is with a wood lathe.
You just have to
drag it. Yeah. Okay. Other fruit that, I mean, with wood, yeah, that's honestly, I'd say just make it out of 2 pieces of wood would be the easiest thing, but to get those kinds of twists in there, they're kind of raised out, so I'm just trying to think, there's a couple different ways that I can think of to do that. That's what usually screws me. I was going to say EVA foam, you could do that. The other thing I was going to mention is something called paper clay. It's a little bit heavy, but it dries super, super hard. The sides of the helmet, like where there's a pipe sticking out and where the filter's sticking out, that's made out of paper clay. You get it as a brick. I think it's about $7 or $8 for like a 1 pound brick and stuff. And it's basically cellulose and polyplay. So you push it down, you can hand form it into whatever you want. If you need it to be a little softer, you can just make some water in it. But once it dries, it's permanently hard, and it's pretty damn resilient as well.
Okay.
So you can use that to form a lot of the twists and the bends that might build out as well. That would probably be what I would want to try first.
Yeah. We have all the sewing stuff we can do.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say a lot of this stuff is sewing. Like I don't do sewing. I make art.
We do sewing.
Yeah, that's always my problem. I don't like. I need coats. But they're expensive.
Not that hard to make.
When you're making like a huge oil cloth duster, or like Russian great coats and stuff like that, or freaking Hirano from Helsing and his desire to always have coats that don't exist in the real world. Rock.
Just recently.
What is?
You put like angle cut into the foam, and then the opposite side you take a rock and you grind the foam, and it makes a raised movement on the other side. I just watched somebody do that on Cosplay the other day.
That sounds like that'll work. I've never seen that before. That's neat. Okay. Yeah, I haven't seen that before. There's one guy I know, Shawshank, that he makes a lot of Deadpool stuff. He makes complete abdomens and stuff out of EVA foam that looks like he's just jacked as all get out.
Cosplay Melee, I highly recommend.
Yeah, I usually follow. I follow too many things though. So
You learn so many random tricks.
Okay. Yeah. So was that? Okay. Cool. Yes.
So I'm making a, I don't know if I hear a signal, Dead Space 2 security forces.
I kind of sort of.
It's basically like,
Yeah, you're talking about the big faceplate thing too?
no, I'm not worried about making it. My problem is, I'm not used to heat at all. Like, this is hot in here for me.
Okay.
It's just that you keep, like, a little trying to
Well, usually when you're using something like a heat gun, it's directed. Oh, while you're wearing it? Yeah. Good luck! Did you see how fast I shucked out of that stuff when I got in here? I was in that for only about 2 hours. No, that's the biggest problem, and I'm actually glad you brought that up because I forgot to mention it at one point, is when you are wearing big, heavy armor pieces, they get really, really freaking hot. This doesn't breathe at all. Some people put computer fans in there to just have a circulation. The thing is this is kind of a pet peeve of mine of like, why don't we have something better? So I've got like half a friggin' notebook of like crazy designs of using Peltiers and copper sheets and like 3-fluorinate cooling chemical and like channeling out copper plates to build cooling jackets underneath things. So yeah, I could talk about that for a while. So the cheapest, lowest, like that's the problem is I know people who used to do IRL racing and stuff, so it's like engineering. No, the most KISS thing I could think of to have a powered radiation thing is have a tank on your back, run copper pipe in a spiral all the way up, have a dump valve on the bottom, have the top screw off, then you run from that copper pipe that twists all the way down, that goes into like a vest that you wear and you just kind of snake it all over that vest, all over you. From the top fill, you dump in a bunch of ice, water, and salt. Salt will keep the water from freezing so that it fully cools off that entire channel. Run some kind of little like aquarium pump at the bottom to run fluid through the whole thing. That would create a relatively efficient cooling vest. I haven't gotten around to building one, so I don't know how well that would work.
You know how
but that's like the kind of like Bubba Garage build, like thermal cooling vest that I came up with in my head, and it should work. Yeah, but just make sure to throw salt in with whatever your radiation fluid is so it doesn't freeze up in there when it hits the tank.
Sea salt, any salt?
Like any salt. So you just want to get that freezing point down. If you want to get super, super fancy and you have the money, there's this stuff called fluorine that 3M makes, and it stays liquid down to like liquid nitrogen temperature, so you can get some dry ice and dump it in there. I would not recommend that. I think Kay and Conops might take unction to that. So, let's see. No, he knows. That's why I couldn't have the pulse rifle walking around. He said it was too heavy. He's like, I'm 20 grand. I'm not going to hit anybody with it. Let's see. So I think you had your hand up. What did you? And then, hang on. I'll do you next after that. Okay.
Isn't it like whenever the Tau
I just sold it. No, I know exactly what they look like. There is actually a dude on Etsy that's selling that stuff. It's terrible. It looks like it's made out of construction. And it looks like $1,300. I know. That's actually like, I was looking at the design of that stuff. That wouldn't be super hard to do stuff like this. There is a guy named Ricky, his cosplay page is called Heck Tech Designs, Hectec. You'll want to look at him for the power armor too. He makes some awesome stuff. Well, he made an NCR veteran ranger, and he's got these big shoulder pauldrons that look kind of like the fireworker shoulder pauldrons. So it's the same kind of idea, and he posts a lot of like how-to stuff of how he built his stuff. So that's like kind of an idea for the shoulder pauldrons. Like the Tau fire armor stuff, it's very kind of like modular armor, for anybody who's not familiar with it. So it's kind of like a basic like BDU is like army clothes kind of base, and then
overalls.
yeah, and then you just have some big like ceramic plates on it. So doing stuff like this, a lot of it is just when you're doing the base layer, you have to heat form it. The only downside to this kind of thing when you're making a hard shell, I made this a while ago, and sometimes I get skinnier and sometimes I get fatter. And this doesn't always fit right. So if you're doing a hard shell thing, just try not to gain or lose weight. But yeah, that's probably what I recommend, is stuff kind of like this, where you take the EVA foam on, put some kind of hardener over it. Shell shock isn't the cheapest thing in the world, but if you're getting into like a Warhammer cosplay, it's never going to be cheap, just like the game itself. Also, I'm going to encourage you to do this, because if you figure out how to do it, and you figure out how to make it replicatable, there's already somebody trying to sell stuff that they're making out of their garage that's terrible. If you figure out how to do this, like at least mediocre good, you can just print money. Okay, so next.
I imagine he has a little bit of armor, but I imagine most of it's like
That gets into stuff I don't know as well. Honestly, a lot of those suits have it's like, yeah, you can put some like fabric stuff in there to kind of like make it up like between like broadcloth or something or something like that. As far as like actual armor plates, yeah, you can go. It's usually light, it's easier to it's cheap. So if you just play around with it, a lot of the time it's something that they can't really tell you for sure. I'll just say like, try using this stuff because it's cheap and you can play around with it a lot. So that would be one of those things like Arkham, I'm trying to think about it. Okay. Damn. I would say, no, that's the kind of stuff that Shawshank makes, is he makes EVA. So if you want something shiny, so this is a Batman with a big shiny armor plate that looks kind of like ceramic gloss polish. There's this stuff called Frog Juice. It's an aerosol spray that was originally used for vinyl sides to weatherproof them, and it makes them look all shiny. You can spray it out with anything, and it makes it look shiny or anything like that. So that's kind of what you would want to use for that finishing, is paint it like a gloss black and spray some of that stuff on. Then it'll act as a sealant. It's a spray bond. And apparently it's pretty cheap stuff too. It's just called Frog Juice. There's an old post that sometimes goes around from some of the cosplay circuits talking about it for the last couple of years. But that stuff is pretty neat. I don't do a lot of like new looking stuff, so I've never tried it myself. Yeah, like a lot of the times I end up like dry brushing the edges or like shooting it with a gun, lighting it on fire. Yeah, I was gonna say, John, are you wearing the coat I shot? Yeah. So his coat, we weathered it by using my 12 gauge. And somehow it missed his pack of cigarettes he left inside of it. And one of my pistol magazines. I was happy.
Shot right through the pocket though, had to sew that back on.
Well, you shot that one yourself.
Yeah, whatever.
Okay, so I don't, was there any other parts of it you were kind of wondering about, or just mostly the art? Yeah, for the cow, there's a lot of different ways to do that. amount of stuff you're going to have to buy just to make it, if it's going to be a one-off thing, you may as well just buy it from someone else who has all the tools, because it's going to cost you 2 or 3 times as much to get the stuff to make it because it's like a 2-level latex mold and things like that. Or you're going to have to get a bunch of leather fucking tools and go on and practice and figure out how to do that. That's not cheap stuff. I don't know the superhero stuff as well. If you ask, so run into him or ask him online, you might be able to get him ask him something. Okay, so who else had hands? Who wants to throw hands at me? Yeah, no, I'm just kind of like backing up, making sure that I'm not missing anybody. So we're gonna do you and who else? There was someone back
Sign
there
up
that had
your
their
number
hand.
and then just go right through the list.
Yeah, I really did that one. I'll do you and then yeah. Oh yeah. Okay. That's definitely something I've seen before. They usually they just use formula, so this would be something that either one or Kydex is harder to work with. Yours should be good. Yeah. So you're going to want to use typically what you're going to want to do for spray paint. The trick for painting with spray paint, and it took me a long time to figure out spray paint. No, just stick over here. Congeals around the nozzle of the brush, so or the hand. So when you first hit that sprayer, it kind of shoots out a big blob of kind of like semi-hard paint. It does the same thing at the end too. So whenever you're painting with spray paint, you want to go in broad strokes across what you're doing. Start off of what you're going to paint, go over, and then let off the button after you've already passed it. So that way you get a little bit more even coating and you get less of a speculoos. So that's usually the trick with spray paint. And then for that, you're going to want to make metallic. That frog juice stuff would be perfect. That'll seal coat it so it doesn't get all chipped up. Like I've got a mask on my jacket that the paint's been chipping like crazy. So I got to go. And my phone will get drunk. But yeah, I mean, a lot of that is relatively basic, like just playing around with it. The cool thing with thermoplastics like Orbital and Kydex, if you don't get the shape you want, just heat it up and just rebend it until you get the shape you want. And then you can just drill through, pin it together with either like a carriage bolt with a spacer and a nut on the edge, and usually use Loctite's. It doesn't all come off on the other. Loctite's brand name is just basically put it to make sure that the nut doesn't rotate off the doors. Because like these were big arm pieces, so if you're moving your arm up and down, it's constantly moving. If you attach it with a bolt and a nut, that nut might back off of the bolt because of the constant motion of going up and down. If you just put a little bit of adhesive on the thread and the nut's going to sit, that'll keep you from doing that. It'll still align that through. But yeah, definitely you want to have stuff sounds like I would test it on like a side piece or something first just to make sure it ends up being like the color and the consistency that you want. One of the other things you can do if you have something that goes on and ends up being glossy and you don't want it to be so glossy is just take a like a terry cloth like hand towel that you don't care about anymore and kind of dab on the surface and that'll actually mute that glossiness and have it a little flat color. So you can just kind of very, very lightly press it up and break up the surface so it doesn't reflect as much light. Or you can push that hard and make it more like a rougher, flatter surface. So a lot of that's going to end up being painting rather than material stuff. The material stuff, bog standard. Just use thermoplastic and keep kind of bending and shaping it until you get the shape. From there, have fun painting. A lot of the time, like Warhammer stuff, like miniature painting, you can find a lot of tips and tricks on there, like doing low binding, highlighting, still brushing, all kinds of other stuff. There's a million more guides on. I used to actually have a separate panel just on painting, but it ended up like people, like, they just started walking out there. Okay, does that answer most of what you're asking for that? Cool. All right, yes. Is that like supposed to be a static handle or is it flexible?
Like a like giant.
I don't even know if they'd let you bring that to a company. Like, no, legitimately, like, that's one of those things that it's like, that can be really dangerous. It's like, imagine, like, so it's like, what, that's supposed to be like a 4 or 5 foot wide yo-yo or something? You say really big.
You could decrease the size to be like.
Okay, yeah, from there, Kydex or EVA would be pretty good because it would be light and make it very easy to manage. EVA would be a little bit tricky, but also Kydex, I guess, because you're making a void on the inside and forming it over. You can use cardboard as a spacer for that, so you build the initial thing out of just cardboard, and then you form the plastic over that. The other thing you can do is you can just pour shell shock directly onto the cardboard, and then sand off all the edges. That'll make it a little bit heavier and a little bit denser. So you got to be careful with the size because that stuff adds up and weight really, really fast. But just to keep it weight manageable, I'd probably recommend EVA or Kydex just because they're strong. And the Kydex would be more structured and rigid than EVA would be a little bit smaller because it would keep it lighter. And then as far as like the rope part, you can get nylon rope in any size and color you want. Amazon's a good place for that. Let's see, who else got hands? Okay, so we'll do you and then you. Yes.
I'm just curious on how you would go about making a full-on helmet from scratch.
What is that from? I know someone. They started with ski.
Yeah, that's what I was.
And they cut out the center bridge because the center bridge is different. Jeez. Craft foam, for sure. Take a look at Tech. He's got a couple of walkthroughs. He made some of the initial pilot elements from Titanfall that look similar to this, but he's got a lot of really good walkthroughs for making helmets. A lot of HEC teams. The guy who runs that dude named Ricky Perez, and he was really, really cool. It's actually funny. A couple of months ago, I was walking through the production office for a show that's going to be coming out. It's Captive State, something like that. It's going to be a show that's going to be for years. And we were talking with the production department about some stuff. And as I was walking through the cars, I see Ricky's cosplay stuff here, here, and here, and here, and here. And I call him up after. I'm like, Ricky, did you talk to a TV studio about them using your art assets for like production documents? And he's like, no, I haven't heard of that. Well, they don't have to tell him because they're not putting his stuff actually in the show. But this show is going to end up being really heavily based on work he's done, and he had no idea. So that's always one of those kind of funny things. But yeah, it's a long way of saying he does good work. But he's got a lot of really, really comprehensive. A lot of what he does for helmets is really complex like that. He just gets regular craft foam and cuts it up into shapes and just kind of hot glues them all together. It's the total piece that he wants, and then I'll put like some kind of covering over that. I don't remember. I don't think he uses shell shock. I think he still uses fiberglass, but shell shock would work great for that. Bondo is going to use this. That's a little easier. Yes. Yeah. I have no idea what this is from. That's kind of cool. Okay, I've heard of it. My first guess would be make the handle out of wood. Let's see, so that's from Kydex. I'm not sure. It depends on the wood. If you use like oak spruce or bark would be pretty good, but it's going to be pretty heavy. Also, they're going to tell you don't carry it around because you might bludgeon somebody with it. There's always a lot of fun edge lines of like, is it a personal crop or is it a con crop? Because if it's a con crop, you got to remember all their rules, and the rules change all the time. Because there's a lot of idiots in the world, and they do stupid stuff that makes it hard for me to bring guns. Like, all my airsoft guns are disallowed and have been for a year. They're all too realistic. I can't bring them. It's like, geez, I'm not really sure what to use for that blade. I would guess start with a double layer of Kydex, like bend it over and maybe sand the edges, like pop it out a little bit. Other than that, I'm not sure. There's a lot of different things you could use to do that, but it just might end up wobbling and flexible. Maybe, I would say maybe like a wooden dowel and fold something over that to make the blade. Yeah, and then you have that fuller that's coming down straight and then you have that blade. So if you just have like maybe a 3 wood dowel up from the center. So if you make the handle out of wood, you can just drill in and then drill a crossbow so that you put the wood dowel down and then you shove a pin through that so that locks that into place so that it doesn't pop out. Yeah. I would maybe do Kydex, but play around with some stuff. Because you may just be able to do a wooden dowel rod in cardboard because you want to be able to take that to security. They pick it up and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, I was trying to do it.
Yeah, and they're a little weird about that. I've never heard about the weight until this time. Okay.